the why was so strong for this show that I was willing to pay whatever the fuck I needed to do to get this thing going because I had that feeling inside my gut. And a lot of us ignore that intuition, and that intuition is what we need to act on.
All right, Lance, welcome to the show, bro.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Dude, pleasure to have you here, man. I'm excited for this episode, bro, because what you do is what I'm trying to do right now, man. So it's great to connect, man. Great to have you here. Where are you tuning in from, Lance?
Vancouver, Canada. So if anybody doesn't know where this is, it's about 3 hours north of Seattle.
Dude, so that's one city I really want to visit, bro. I've seen videos and it just looks so beautiful in Vancouver.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a good spot. There's lots of outdoor stuff. It's close to the States. If you want to go to the States, like there's mountains, there's ocean. It's a good place, man. Clean spot.
Born and raised over there? Or?
No, I was born and raised in a city called Edmonton, Alberta. I was a hockey player, so it's all very cold there. That's north of, let's say, Montana. And then when I was around 11, we moved out to the West Coast onto Vancouver Island, which is a ferry ride from Vancouver in about 90 minutes. So I grew up till I was about 11 in the prairies and then on the West Coast.
Sweet, bro.
After that.
Awesome, man. So, Lance, for the people that aren't familiar with you and your work, would you mind to give us like a brief overview of what you're up to?
Absolutely, man. So we'll start back kind of teenage years here. I was a hockey player, as I mentioned, and I was trying to make it professional, and that was kind of like my tunnel vision. That was kind of what I was doing. And when I was 20 years old, I made the mistake of doing a big cycle of steroids, which completely messed up my body and my, so that kind of ended my career.
No shit.
Yeah. So it was, I gained a lot of weight. I was massive. I put on like probably 25 pounds in a summer, but I couldn't skate. So I was left kind of like, well, why are you so heavy? Why you, how do you show up like this and you can't skate? So that ended that. I finished off the season at a level down, and that was kind of things kind of unraveled for me at that point, because when you're, an athlete, you only know that goal. You only know that person. And when you're transitioning from athlete into the real world, it's very challenging. A lot of people get all fucked up in that process. Sorry to swear if you guys, I don't know.
Nah, bro, we keep it raw. We keep it explicit over here.
So we, and this is a lot of times it's a really challenging transition. And I didn't really know what direction to go because I was a hockey player my whole life. So I tried a bunch of different things. At the time, everybody was telling me to become do a trade like a carpenter or electrician, or I'm 36. So at that time, everybody was talking about all the baby boomers retiring and you need to go into this profession because there's a high demand in it. But I never wanted to do that. Not knocking the trades at all. I think it's great if that's what you want to do, but I didn't work for me. So I tried all these things, didn't like it, bunch of different shit. But then I found an industry, and we're kind of mutual in that respect. The restaurant, the bars, I kind of felt an area that allowed me to sort of use my personality. I love connecting with people. I love the relationship side. I didn't realize it at the time, but that industry allowed me to sort of really shine, and I could meet girls and I could party, and I was getting rewarded with tips. So there's a lot of things feeding into my ego, into my dark side. There was a lot of shit, right? And that I did that for years. I did that for my entire 20s. I did that into my early 30s, and I did that up until, at the end of 2017. So during that period, it was wild. I had some of the craziest, funnest moments of my life. I moved to Australia for 5 years, ran some bars there, had a lot of fun. but really did a number on my body. And I got to a point where, I was in my early 30s and I was like, shit, like this isn't sustainable anymore. So by the end of 2017, I decided to quit that industry and transition into, trying to figure out a new world, entrepreneurship, and kind of where all your audience is at, kind of that beginning spot. And yeah, man, that's kind of, then I started to explore the next level. So
yeah, man, going back to the service industry, we talked offline right now on what it would be like if we were still both in that industry, man. So many people are getting just hammered, for the last couple of months. Like, I can't even imagine. It's like everything's great, and then one day your place closes up, and now you're trying to figure out how to make money.
Yeah.
And you got bills to pay, right? I think the service industry was probably one of the hardest hit industries, like all across like the world, right?
Yeah, and it's a really bizarre thing because you always think that that's like the staple of society. It's like, oh, well, you can always go work in a bar. Like, I was always thinking, oh, if everything else failed, I could always just go pour drinks, because I have that skill and you have that skill. And like, it's like one of those things where it's a great skill you can travel with, if you can serve a table in a restaurant. I mean, shit, you can make money. But when that's pulled away, that's a strange area that we're in, which I don't think anybody saw coming. I don't think anybody would have ever thought that a restaurant or bars would shut.
Yeah.
And as we were talking about, that industry, as much money as you can make, you can definitely spend it just as fast. So there's not a lot of planning when it comes to that. It's very disposable income. And there was probably a lot of people just living cash to cash, thinking the next week they're going to make more. It's okay. And then boom, they're hit with that. And another part of that too is like, I was thinking about when I was in Australia, and if that happened when I was overseas, I don't even know if I would have qualified for like the money that they were giving out or whatever. So like that was a whole thing that I was thinking about too. Like, what does that look like for people that are traveling overseas, and you're stuck over there and you don't really qualify. You're not part of the government, or you're not part of the system, but you're visiting, and it's a whole crazy, crazy world, man. So, yeah, definitely that industry got hit hard, and man,
that's a fact, bro. But you know what though, Lance, man, before I got started in the business world, right? I come from the real estate space. Serving was like serving, and then I got into bartending. I started off serving tables. That was it for me, and here's why, right? And a lot of people don't even consider this. Being in the service industry, like if you're in a prime spot, right, you can make just as much, if not more money than a lot of the careers out there. Like people that go to university for 4 years and get placement making $60K a year. And you can do that easily in the service space. It's a lot of hours, but it's a great industry to be in, especially if you're just starting out and you're trying to figure out what you want to do. Like you said, very flexible. It's a great starting point for a lot of people to make some good money and then have time to build their business, build their brand.
Dude, there's so many valuable things that come out of that industry. And, I definitely don't like to paint the picture that it was like it was an all bad thing, because obviously I got out of it, but there was so many things that I learned from that industry, man. Like the ability to be able to create relationships on the fly, like connect with people. This is why podcasting, you probably get it too. You got to be able to connect with people. You got to be able to like, just boom right away. And it's like that transfers over in all business, sales and marketing, and any sort of business is all relationships, right? And in the service industry, your whole bread and butter depends on how good you are at that. Your time management, your communication, your presence, like planting the seed. Like if things are going to take a little longer, a little bit of communication opens up so many doors, so much time for you. And all those little things that you learn, the multitasking, man, it all streams over to whatever else you do. And I never realized getting into that industry what I was going to learn and how many different things were going to come out of that. So for me, the sports industry and the bar industry were like the two best dynamics to learn about life without actually going to school, like, so yeah, that industry, man, you can make a killing. And if you're really smart and you just buckle down and you take that money and you do it properly, which 99% of people don't do, because it's just, you make it just
It's
as fast,
It's fast money.
right?
Exactly.
But man, if you can make, like, I know people that, like, I was making like hundreds of dollars a night. Like, I paid off during the Stanley Cup playoffs, the hockey playoffs here in 2011. The Vancouver Canucks went to the finals, game 7. I paid off 2 credit cards during that because it was just like a lot of hours, but man, people just throw money at you. And if you're in that spot and you got a good gig, you just put your head down and you can really, really do well.
Exactly, bro. Dude, like, a lot of people don't even know this either, bro, but in Vegas, right, the service industry workers are actually union, right? So they get benefits, you get health insurance, all that good stuff. And some of them are even making, 6 figures a year.
Yeah, man.
6 figures, serving tables and bartending. It's crazy.
And you know what, bro? As you get to a certain age where, entrepreneurship isn't for everybody either, right? And you realize there's a lot of fucking work when you work for yourself, which is great, right? There's a lot of wins. There's good and bad on both sides. But there's people that get to a certain age where they're like, fuck, if I can make a good living doing this and just check in, check out, that's okay. And that's great. You can make good money. But, but then there's that feeling of being stuck in that position, which isn't the nicest feeling. So, but yeah, you're right. Like, you can make, if you're in a good gig, like somewhere like Vegas, or even some of the private hotels, like, you work for 4 Seasons or something, and it's like you're making a good living, and it's safe, right? It's a safe way to go. But, at the end of the day, it's like kind of like, what do you want out of life, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Being in the service industry is like the job that you love to hate, right? Because you're going to make some good money, but the other aspects of it are, a lot of hours on your feet, right? Sometimes if you're in a busy place, it's like nonstop. Like you're working for hours without even getting able to take a break. And then, like, for me, bro, it was the politics, man. Like, I think every bar has that one bartender that just thinks they're super hot shit and they call all the shots, and it just like becomes this like toxic environment. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. And they get that big head syndrome, and it's like, all right, I gotta do something else here.
It's like a prerequisite for every single bar or restaurant to have those different profile people, like it's just so funny because it's like that at every single restaurant or bar. Like, there's always, the asshole guy a lifer that thinks he knows everything. And then there's like there's so many different levels to that.
It's literally like high school, right? You got the cool kids, you got the cool clique, you got the loners, you got the people on the power trip.
And you got the grumpy chick that's been there for too many years.
One thing I miss about being in the service industry is the social aspect, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Like meeting people. Like, I've met, and I know you have too. I've met friends, like people I still talk to now, working in that industry. But being in the entrepreneurial space, being in my own business, it's a pretty lonely world, right? Like. It's tough to meet people as an entrepreneur if you're not, building a team of your own where you have like a hub and you're just meeting different people constantly. Like, it's a lonely world. Like, has that been a struggle for you at all in your own business?
Yes and no, because I don't have that like in-person social aspect as much, but I'm also interviewing a ton of people, right? Like, I release 3 episodes a week. So like there's weeks where I do 9 interviews, and, I have a team as well, a great team. And, there's a few of us. What do we have now? 1, 2, like 4 of us right now. And that's building. So like, I do get to have that dynamic of like that, but there definitely is a lack of socializing in that way, which is almost a blessing for me because it becomes pretty toxic. So But yeah, you're right. It can be lonely when you're building a business. You got to put your head down, and it can definitely be a lonely spot. Absolutely. Yeah.
So let's talk about that, right? What you're currently doing. So you are the host of a podcast called The University of Adversity,
Yeah.
right? It's a pretty popular podcast, right? So
Yeah.
let's talk about that, man. So how do you go from slinging drinks to being a podcaster? What did that look like for you?
So when I was in 2016, well, I'm going to get a little bit deep here as to the why. So it's going to get a little deep, but I lost my younger brother to suicide and my dad to cancer within like 18 months. Okay. So put perspective in, things got pretty dark. I was very toxic, doing a lot of drugs, partying, and I quit drinking for a whole year, which really helped shift my perspective. And I really was searching for inspiration. Losing two people in my family, I gravitated towards things that inspired me, podcasts that inspired me, right? And I just had this call within myself to start something that was going to give people what I needed, like that inspiration. And the word adversity was something that came to me, and I just played with that word. I love the word. And I just decided to create a podcast called University of Adversity. And when I first started that, I was starting that to help grow my personal brand. And I was doing direct selling and doing a lot of Facebook ads. So what was happening was I was competing with a lot of people trying to sell things, but nobody knew who I was. So I decided, what if I could share my story in a way that not only allows me to open up, be vulnerable, share all my truth with people, and have others do the same, have a container that provides a safe space for people to share. And that's what I did. And it was so deep rooted into my why that I was willing to do whatever it took. Right. So at the time I hired somebody to help me with the podcast because I didn't have a fucking clue how to do it. And that's how we did it. And what I noticed was that a combination of having a podcast that was really fulfilling my why and building this beast and being able to connect with all these amazing people, from New York Times bestsellers, athletes, fucking tons of people, to be able to grow my confidence in a way that allowed me to take a step back and put the direct selling and the online marketing aside for a second and create my own business. So once I saw what a podcast actually can do, I thought, what if I can replicate the service that I had, which is kind of like a done for you podcast model, and offer that to people like myself or other businesses or personal brands that want to have a podcast but don't have a fucking clue how to do it. So that's what I did. And I did a lot of research. I got on LinkedIn calls. I was like, hey, what's the reason you don't have a podcast? You got a business. Oh, I just don't have the time. Oh, cool. You want to start one though? Yeah, I just don't have the time, or my team's busy. So I was like, oh, okay. And you hear that enough times. So I was like, okay, I need to create this. So I created it. And initially I had different partners. We fell under, had to start from scratch, then rebranded, started over again. We created Mike Up, and it's been amazing, man. And that combination of being able to build my podcast, show who I really am, because people can get to know me pretty fast. And once they can see that, like any podcast, like yourself, you show your truth to people, and people want to get to know you more. People want to do business with you. And when you show up consistently over a period of time, that just helps your business. So that's kind of how it's kind of turned into what it is. And the show has been, super successful. We're, over 210 episodes in now. And, like I said, it's just been an absolute blessing. So yeah, man,
I love
that's
it,
kind
bro.
of the story.
I love it, man. And I want to talk about the done for you stuff that you created
Yeah.
here in just a bit, but I want to go back to the start of the podcast, right? And
Yeah.
one thing that I find a lot of people are interested in is like, okay, I get it, you did it, but how? Like, what did it look like to take that first step, right? So you go online, right? You first off, you figure out, okay, I want to start a podcast. I've been listening to a few, I want my own. So you go on, you find some sort of like a podcast hosting website. Did you go out? Did you buy a microphone, some headphones? Like, what did that look like for you? Like, how did you land your first guest? Like,
Okay.
walk
Before
us through. Yeah.
Before all that. So there's a big piece here that people get, and the reason they fail. And it's because they don't have their why. It's because they don't get clear on who they want to speak to, what the show is, who they want to speak to, and, where they want it to go, kind of thing. And you need to get clear on your fucking why, just like you need to get clear on your why if you're doing anything in life. Your business, you need to know, you need to think about, am I willing to do this for 3 to 5 years? If you're not, then don't bother, because it's a lot of work. There's a lot of shit you got to do, just like anything. I'm brutally honest, right? As you know, podcasting is just another tool, but it takes work. So I got brutally honest with myself. I said, is this something that I'm willing to go and do for the long term? And it was yes. So I drew up my why. I thought about, the name and all that stuff way before I thought about buying gear and all that. You just got to get super, super clear. And your avatar, who you want to speak to, who's your audience. Then you can get into then once you get that, things get easier because you're a lot clearer on your vision. And at the end of the day, you're going to hear a lot of no's. You're going to hear there's so many podcasts out there. If you aren't willing to get through that noise because of a why, because of your reason why you're doing it in the first place, you won't last. You'll fail. And I want to see people get past 5 episodes, right? And so that was it. And for me, the specific route I took is I hired somebody. So not just to plug what I do, but this is literally why I created this, is because I hired somebody to help me because I didn't have a fucking clue. Like I don't know, to be completely honest with you, if I would have been able to do what I did if I just did it myself, because I'm not a techie person, and I didn't even know how to use Zoom. I didn't know how to use any of this shit. So for me, for my prototype, for who I am, I had to hire somebody, and that's how I did it. But as I went along, I learned, right? Where I found my skill was reaching out to guests. I was able to connect with a lot of awesome people, and that's a skill in itself that a lot of people miss. But yeah, man. And then obviously you buy your gear, you buy, you get that going. There's obviously, I know how to do it now, but like back then I was sort of just relying on, I just need help with this, help me out, because I didn't really know. Like, if you want my honest,
that's a golden nugget right there, bro, because that's with anything, man. Yeah. Hiring the right people, man, hiring the expert to show you the way is so applicable in many industries, like especially in the real estate world. Like I'm a real estate coach. People come to me with nothing. They want to start the business. I give them the business in a box, and they do it with me. And it's that fast lane mentality versus the slow lane, right? Like, I'm sure if you would have started out on your podcast with that slow mind mindset, it would have took you 10 times the amount of time to get started and get that first episode out.
Totally, man. But that's why we're going to have to invest money in our lives, right? At some point. Like, you're going to have to invest in yourself. And for me, the why was so strong for this show that I was willing to pay whatever the fuck I needed to do to get this thing going, because I had that feeling inside my gut. And a lot of us ignore that intuition, and that intuition is what we need to act on. And we only don't act on that shit is because of other people around us. We listen to the noise. We get the inspiration, and then we shut it out because whatever is talking us out of it. And that's a prime thing for podcasting. Is like, people are so fucking worried about what everyone else is doing. They don't focus on their own area of genius, right? And that's why it's important to have your why so clear. when you're starting is that it does take time, but your audience will come to you if you show up and consistently over time. So that's the main thing I would say is the number one thing. Getting a mic, software, all that shit is easy. Like obviously it takes a while. You got to edit the episode. You got to do all that stuff, of course. But that stuff's like, you can learn how to do that stuff. It's when when you're tired, when you're behind, when you're like, man, I really don't want to do this podcast. That's when your why comes in. That's where you go, well, fuck, what did I start this for in the first place? Right? And then you realize this is part of it. This needs to keep going. So I know I'm kind of like, I'm trying to give your audience like the bigger perspective here, right? That's how deep you got to go with it because, it's challenging route, but that's the lesson you got to have as an entrepreneur as well, right? You got to be able to take a beating by the world sometimes and still keep going. And the reason you can keep going is because your why is so strong.
I love it, bro. That is spot on. That's with anything. You have to find out why you want to do something. The why has to be strong, man. If the why is not strong, you're going to flunk out.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And that's just like anything. Podcast is just another thing. It's another thing that can train you to be consistent and that it becomes more than about you. It becomes the people listening. You become valuable to people and your word matters. And when you know your word matters and you know that you can change people's lives, that's a fucking amazing feeling, And when you start to get a taste of people saying, wow, your show impacted me, or I got this or that, you see reviews, that's what keeps the juices flowing. And that takes time. Again, comes back to your why, always.
So let's talk about when the show first started getting results.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Because with anything in business or entrepreneurship, the results, when they come, it feels good. But sometimes things get off to a slow start, right? It doesn't just happen. You're not going to put out your first podcast and get 10,000 downloads right away.
No.
So let's talk about that come up of releasing content and growing the show.
So, yeah, I was pretty lucky in the beginning. Our mutual friend, Nathan Ortega, so this is going back a couple of years now. He had a bunch of people who wanted to get on podcasts, and he hooked me up with some awesome, dope people.
Shout out to Nathan.
Nathan.
Shout out to Nathan. Nathan's underrated right now. Yeah, shout out to Nathan. He's a beast.
He's a great dude. And he hooked me up with some great people, right? But that's all timing, right? When you got a good show and you got an organized show, people want to come on. We're at a beautiful time right now where people are willing to come on and share their truth. There's not enough shows out there that allow people. So I had a place where it just flowed. I had these people come in. I had a few of my own that I knew from my own network. Nathan hooked me up with a few, and then boom, the ball was rolling. And then how it works is like you start to leverage. I had this guest on, so can you get this? And like you just start to be like the people you're pitching, you're like, oh, he's had those people on. Oh, okay. And then I had a really good Instagram account as well that I fucking worked hard on. It was hacked in February. So I had a huge following on there. Had to restart, which sucked. But that was something that I built hand in hand was my Instagram and my podcast. So I was once you want to work on your social media while you're doing that. You want to post your podcast content so people could go and they can look at your show and see that you're actually you're actually growing, you're actually working, you got content out there. It's actually worth their while. And that's why it's not always going to work out like that either. So for somebody starting, for guests, just, keep your ego in check, right? Don't, just get a flow. It's not always, you're not going to get huge names overnight. Reach out to people. Sometimes you'll get lucky. You'll get one big name, and then you use them as leverage. Then you put together, how can I pitch this guest by using this guest? And what you want to do as well, you want to hit a ranking on iTunes or Apple as quick as possible. So then if you hit a certain rank, top I think my show hit number 12 and personal development in Canada, which was huge for me. But it's hit the charts a few times. It hit them early. And the reason I'm telling you guys this is that when you launch your show, you want to have a campaign where it drives as many people there to subscribe, rate, review as possible. And then you'll rank up in the charts. And as soon as you hit a ranking, you screenshot it and you can use that as leverage to get guests. So then you got a ranking, then you got a couple high profile people, and then you use that to pitch guests and then to go further and further. And that's how it happens. You get little wins, you get featured in a publication, and boom, you're stacking. You're stacking. Your social media is growing. You got a publication, you've hit the Apple charts, you've had this influencer on, this person. Boom, you got yourself a case. How are you going to get a person on your show? Well, boom, boom, boom. It's stacked in your favor, right? And that's how it happens. That's how things for me, that's how it happened.
And you just build that momentum. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Use what you got.
I'm curious, Lance, when you started your podcast, right? Did you think that one day you would monetize it, or were you just doing it to put content out there without even thinking I can turn this into a money-making avenue?
It's a great question. And I would highly suggest, if you're going to go into it, do not have that as your main goal. Do not have making money from your podcast is going to be the savior of your business, because it's not going to fucking happen. I know there's a lot of people saying it's going to be a cash cow. And look, you can make money with your podcast. You can. Absolutely. There's a ton. You can do affiliate links. You can lots of joint venture partnerships. There's lots of stuff you can do. But I would just say, this is only my perspective. Somebody else may say it's different. I would go into it thinking I'm adding as much value as I can. I'm going into it as a way of more content, evergreen content for people. Like, I wouldn't be going into it to automatically turn into like a business. It's a great idea, but at first, just go into it as you're going to give value. That's because it's not realistic to just think like you're going to be able to all of a sudden turn on the jets and make 10 grand an episode or whatever the fuck. Like, it's just, that's just me being completely real. If you got something, if you got a good audience, you got lots of stuff, you can resource pages, you can do all this shit where you can make money on your show. Absolutely. But that shouldn't be, again, this is my perspective. I wouldn't go into that with the number one objective.
Boom.
Absolutely. Value first.
Absolutely. When you bring value to the marketplace, you get rewarded down the line.
Totally. And if you're in this for the long term, don't worry. Especially if you're listening and you're into this game now and you're a beginner, stay the course. You will be able to make money from this. Absolutely.
It's like Twitch streamers nowadays, right? I mean, people see guys like Ninja, Tfue. I don't know if you heard any of these names before, but the mega streamers making millions and millions of dollars a month, and that inspires people to start their own stream. And then they start it and they realize, well, I'm not making $10,000 a stream yet. Like, fuck this, I'm out.
Yeah.
They're getting started for the wrong reason. It takes time. It takes time to build something of worth. And there has to be a bigger driver than just money. There has to be. Tony Robbins says that, right? If money is your only driver, it's going to be a painful ride for you when you're first starting out, because it's not why you show up every day.
Totally, man. There's always going to be ways to make money, but in a world of a lot of people trying to make money all the time and not paying attention to enough value, like, you're going to get lost. It's super important to really focus on value. Money will come. I mean, we have to make money. I'm not saying money's not important. I just want to be clear, of course. But podcasting particularly, I would really focus on value.
Yeah, I mean, well, I would not even just say podcast. I'd say content creation in general.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, you know.
Whether you're writing a book, you're publishing a magazine, you're doing a podcast, you're, whatever. Whatever it is that you're teaching a course, money's important. It's going to come, but you have to create value. Because the marketplace determines if you're hot or you're not, right? Like, The marketplace is going to determine whether you're going to become a profitable piece of content or not. And unfortunately, Lance, sometimes content doesn't get the appreciation it deserves until far later down the road.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And podcasting is a great way to create a bunch of micro content, a bunch of content that's evergreen, that you can put everywhere. And eventually, it's a slow build, man. You're building an audience it takes a while, right? Like Lewis Howes has been doing this for 10 years. Joe Rogan, 10 years. Like Tim Ferriss, like 10 years. This shit takes a while, right? And imagine if you kept doing anything for 10 years. Anything. Like if you write for 10 years, you're going to be able to have a fucking great book, right? If you write for 5 years, like this is the thing. It's just like, it's changing the mentality to like the next thing and the next thing. It's like focus on one fucking thing for a while. Don't jump around.
Say it louder for the people in the back, bro. That's a big one. Holy
shit. It's like we all just want to jump and shiny ball syndrome. It's like, man, just focus on your craft. Like do what you got to do, but just be realistic. If you don't get results for 3 to 5 years, you'll get feedback. If your show sucks, you'll get feedback. You can just pivot and do something like, there's always ways. Failing is just feedback. You just adjust. It's not real failure unless you quit. If you quit and throw in the towel, then that's, essentially a failing move, right? But you don't have to do that. It can always turn into something else.
Lance, let's say that you want to get a guest on the show and you really want this guest on. They have a huge following, huge business, millions and millions of dollars, millions and millions of followers, and you get rejected. How does that make you feel?
Depends. I mean, I guess it comes down to self-awareness. Like, where am I at and why am I even at the point where they would even come on my show? Like, put yourself in their shoes, right? Like, why would they? Here's what I do. When you're pitching a guest, you need to get into their heads. You need to do your research on what it is they do, what it is they love, something that you can connect with them on, and be original. Don't just say, I liked your book. Like, really find that. And this is gold for your listeners, because this shit is fucking gold. I'm not just like, this stuff works. You really, it's about appreciating, finding that mutual thing that you appreciate and really connecting with them. And also just leading with gratitude, the appreciation for what they've done. You get that connection on, a specific thing. So for me, University of Adversity, I need to go and, like, if I really want to guess, I really go and figure out, how am I going to connect with this person and why would they want to come on my show? And that's what I do first. It's about that. And then it's about my message, and then it's about who I've had on. Right. So there's a stacking formula, and I'm able now to leverage, I've had Grant Cardone, Dean Graziosi. I've had a lot of really good people on my show, so I can use that now. Losing my social media has made it a little challenging on Instagram, but that's neither here nor there. But I really get clear on my objective of landing these guests, and I encourage anybody to do that. So I know that I'm kind of steering away from the question, but if you do get that and you're super, like, clear and connected, and you have an objective about landing these guests, and they say no, well, I don't get upset, because I just say, well, it's just not the right time yet. I know I'm going to get all the people I want at some point. I fucking know it. And there's people I don't want to pitch now because I don't even want to have them on yet. Like, if you stay in the game long enough, you'll eventually get all the people you want on, right? And so the long answer to your question is like, I don't get upset. I did before. There's only been a couple that have said no to me. The bigger people that I pitched have always said yes. It's the ones that are like kind of, I think, got their egos a little bit, think they're a little bit bigger than they are, have said no, which is kind of funny because I take note of that.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But with pitching guests, it's really about what can I do for them? It comes down to classic sales. You know, what can I do for this person? Why would they come on my show? You know, and how can I connect with them? You know, I always offer, hey, I'd love to promote whatever you have. I do my research. I know you got a book coming out on October 27th. I'd love to promote that. Even if you got a small audience, what can you do for them? You know, find that connection, find the reason why something unique, stack the stuff you've done, and then offer to share it with your audience and wherever you can. Just have that in mind. It's not about you. It becomes about them. Why would they come on the show? Right. But the reality of it is there's going to be a lot of no's. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of no's.
I don't know if you can relate to this or not, dude, but some of the best interviews, podcast episodes I've done are from the unknown. The people that aren't mega stars on Instagram.
Totally.
And they got kick-ass stories, you know? Totally. I think for me, that's like when I first started this. I've only been podcasting for like 3 months now, but I was like, yeah, I got to have the big time, you know, big time people on. Because that's what the people want to hear. But I slowly realized, man, like, I just want to story tell. Just want to share stories. So all I want to do.
Yeah, dude, just keep it up, man. Like, and the thing is like, not everybody wants to hear the big name people because they all get recycled around. I'm learning that too. This has been a learning curve. All the big names, most of them come on and say the same shit. There's no like, you can just find them anywhere and listen to the same stories. I try and go deeper with them, but at the same time, having the big names is good for social proof and for leveraging other big names.
Facts.
But you don't need, you like the up and comers. Here's another fucking gold tip that I learned is that those big names will never share your content. They'll never fucking share your content. Like they have too much of their own. They've been interviewed 50,000 times. They'll never share. It's the people on the come up, the ones that are like, you can feel the momentum. They're big. They're just coming their books out, but you know they're big. You know they're hot. You know they're great. And they don't have the ego to the point where they can't do your show yet. And like they're like coming up and they fucking share it. My best episodes have been those people and they share the shit out of the content. And then you tap into their audience. If they're not sharing it, you're missing out on that whole audience. That's why you got to make sure you have good content, videos, audiograms. This is why we created what we do, so that when your show airs, you can give it to your guests to share also. And what I've noticed is the big names don't, but the people that are on the come up or the people that, you know, maybe a little bit lower on the podcast scale, but they're successful in business, will share the shit out of it to their network. And those people, just because they're not known on social media, doesn't mean that they don't have a big email list. Doesn't mean that they don't have people, right? So we get so caught up in social media as like, oh, these people are only big because they're on social media. That's not true. There's a lot of people that haven't tapped in fully to social media, but they still have a good crew of people, and those people will share your shit. So that there is very, very important. So it's good to have a balance. You want to have throw a celebrity there if you can get a pro athlete here and there and then leverage that. But you also want to have that real like raw, I haven't made it yet. Here's where I'm at, you know? I was just like you. I'm not where I want to be at, but I'm in the middle, you know? And that's inspiring for people.
I love it. That's a bomb right there, bro. Setting it off.
Yeah.
My man. That's true, bro. Very true. Yeah. Especially, dude, Lance, in the real estate world, man, the richest real estate investors, dude, they don't have social media followings. I just had a guy on last week. He's worth north of 50 million, owns 1 million square feet of retail space. Very, very little social media following, but an amazing story to tell, right?
Yeah.
But Lance, I want to pivot here. I want to talk about on the personal side of things before we get into, you know, what you're currently doing, what you've done for your service. But Lance, the entrepreneur, what would you say is your biggest challenge that you face, that you struggle with since you've gotten started?
Great question. This is very, very important for everybody out there. And this is something that you're going to need to master. And that is belief in yourself. Because if you don't fully believe in yourself and what you're doing, don't expect other people to. You have to believe. It's the core thing. You have to fucking get clear, and you have to believe that what you're doing is possible. And for me, it's staying in that zone and not listening to the self-doubt and knowing that what I want to, again, going back to the why, that it's worth doing what I'm doing, and to feel those feelings, and to know that the belief that I have is stronger than everything else. You have to believe in yourself. And I'm not going to get cheesy or, cliche here, but you got to fucking believe in yourself. I can't stress it enough. It's the number one thing that people will quit or stop because they stop believing. If you actually believe in yourself, you'll never quit. You'll just keep going. And for me, it's the days where I'm like, shit, why don't I have this yet? Or why don't I have that yet? Or blah, 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 the self-talk, which comes from a lack of gratitude. If you're in a state of lack, you're going to think like that. Another thing is you have to be grateful for what you have, and you'll bring more into your life. But the true belief in everything you're doing, you need to be fully behind your message. And that's a lot of inner work. That's a lot of personal work that you got to do on yourself. But if you're not doing that, I highly suggest you get curious and start wondering, why don't you believe in yourself if this is a constant thing? It's usually a deeper rooted thing, right? It's usually some sort of limited belief in the past or whatever. But again, that would be probably the thing that I struggle with the most, is like, why does this matter? Like, why would I be successful? I don't have a fucking degree in school. And all this like poor me stuff. But when I shift it and go, fuck, why not? Like, these people are no different than us. They've just been doing it longer. Why the fuck are they successful? It's because they've been consistent and they've showed up. They're no different. Everybody that's successful is just a human being on the same fucking journey. They just may be at chapter 10. You may be at chapter 1. And it all comes down to they just believed in themselves. So again, the long answer, belief.
I love it, man. That's a big one too. Especially when you're on the come up and you see people that you started with or relatively the same time, and that person has accelerated miles past where you're currently at success-wise. It's very easy to get discouraged and think, well, fuck, I just suck because these people are all winning up here and I'm still down here, right? And a lot of people deal with that, man, and they end up just throwing in the towel and thinking that it's not for them. But they need to realize that everybody goes at their own pace, right? Just how it is.
Yeah, and they're looking at life through their lens. You don't know what's going on in their life. Like, why is that? Why do we have to compare our success? Because it's all different. We all are at different stages. And that comparison is so dangerous. It's good to know who's out there, but it really has no business in your own like fucking up with your head, because we're all different. We've all been raised different. We're all in different parts of the world. We all see life differently. Why the fuck would we compare our journeys together? Like, it's completely different.
Boom.
And just using it as a guide, like, cool, that's possible. It's fucking possible for me too. If that person can do it, that's it. That's where your mindset should be. To be like, if it's done, then that means I can do it. Even if it's not done, you can still do it. But like, that's where the comparison is smart. But using that as like, oh shit, they're doing this and I shouldn't be here. It's like, well, it's not the right way to look at it. Like, yeah, man, it's comparisons can be dangerous, but they can also be a good way to sort of gauge where you're at.
I love it, man. Lance, let's talk about your agency, right? So you started podcasting, you built up the show, you got some results, and then you thought, you know what? There's someone out there right now that doesn't have the podcast. They want to have a podcast, but they're just like you were, and you don't have all the fancy equipment at the time, and they use that as a reason to not get started. So you build up this agency. What does that look like, right? What do you exactly do for clients?
Yeah. First of all, just the beginning of that part. I don't have fancy shit. I have not if you don't need to go and spend thousands of dollars.
You got a kick-ass mic though, bro. The mic sounds
This is just this is like a fucking karaoke mic. It just looks like that. It's a tried, tested, and true, strong, and I just have it how I have it set up. I got my Bose earphones and I got a little mixer. It's super cheap. My point is I'm probably going to upgrade, but my point is that you can, if you want to start, you don't need to get all fancy. You can just start with basic shit. It's not a big deal, right? And so just to kind of elaborate on that, that's what stopped some people. It's like, oh, I got to get all this shit. It's like, no, you just get something basic. I started out with the Blue Yeti, something easy, just a USB, just plug it in.
Hey, this is a $50 mic, bro.
There you go. But that's the thing. You just start. What we do is we provide the full end-to-end wherever you're at in the journey, whether you want the full done for you from start of the beginning of the show creation. We do the graphic design. We do the intros, the outros, the music. We got a bunch of like royalty-free music. Can do that. Or we can kind of meet you where you're at. So I kind of end-to-end podcast solutions for your business or personal brand, right? And we create the content. So when an episode goes live, we do the show notes. We edit the episode. We got pro editors with pro softwares and put it all together, create content for that episode. Then we blast it onto your host site, which there's many host sites, Buzzsprout, Libsyn, Podbean, whatever. And then that populates it to everywhere. And then from there, we set it up where we do all the social media posting. And then we send it out an email. People get their content, and then we send it to the guests. So basically, we're just taking the audio and the video, and we're doing as many things as we can with it and getting it out there so people can actually get to know your show and see it visually. And then we also offer YouTube and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the thing. And, some people just want basic editing because they have a marketing team. Some people want the whole kit and caboodle because their team's busy. And a lot of people now what I'm really excited about is that marketing agencies don't know shit about podcasting. So we're kind of creating our own lane here, which will potentially turn into a full marketing agency because podcasting is a marketing tool. It's one piece of it, but we're going to eventually be able to offer whatever it is you need. So for right now though, just complete end-to-end podcast production and social media distribution.
And how has that been for you?
It's been great, man. It's been great. It's been challenging, but I have an amazing team that I've put together. The systems we have a great base system dialed in now. And, our clients are paired up with our editors. Like it's a really great synergistic effect of like how we all communicate and how it comes together. Is it perfect? No, but it's coming along. And as we grow, we can expand. And it feels good to be able to kind of bring people's vision to life,
So when it comes to doing your podcast and running the agency, what would you say the average day looks like for you?
Well, we get it to the point. What I do for my podcast,
how do you spend your time throughout the day, basically?
Oh, that's a great question. It's different. My first part of the day is always my morning routine. So meditation, journaling, physical movement. That's a huge part of the day at how I program my day. So if you don't have a morning routine, I highly suggest you get one. Figure what that is out for you. Then I communicate with my team. We have clients, but I don't have a lot of hands-on work that I need to be doing because a lot of it is kind of, I focus on clients, the sales calls, that kind of stuff, a lot of interviews, a lot of like, the high level conversations, the generating of the business. Right. And
The
that's
macro.
basically, yeah. So that's kind of, you know, the beautiful thing is I have a team that takes care of a lot of the stuff behind the scenes, which I'm blessed to have. The communication, the emails, all that stuff. And I kind of just touch base, and help kind of make sure that things are all running smoothly, right? And yeah, man, I also, started doing coaching because I realized that people are always asking me for podcast advice. So I decided to create, one-on-one sessions where I got to charge for my time. I can't do everything for free anymore. Like it's it. And I also offer, coaching about shit that I've learned, adversity, getting through adversity, going through it because I've experienced it in my own life in 3 different, from the hockey to the bartender to now. I have real life experience on this shit. So I'm doing that. And yeah, man. And I've been working on this course. We're also doing an 8-week podcast mentorship course where we're going to have 10 to 12 people. And we're going to walk them through from start to finish on how to launch your podcast from scratch and how to do it effectively. Kind of like what we talked about here, little bits of it. And we're going to be doing that over 8 weeks. And we're going to be taking people and really helping them get from start to finish and kind of holding their hand through the whole process. So that's the shit I've been working on. I'm going to be also working on writing a book as well. So lots happening, man.
Eliminating that white space, man. Staying productive, staying busy. I love it. Lance, what's your message for the people, right? The people they're listening right now. You got people tuned in on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all over the place. What's your message, man, to the person that's listening right now? What do you want that person to know?
Discover your truth. Like actually figure out who the fuck you are at the core. Like really be yourself, something that simple. A lot of people are trying to be other people. A lot of people use other people as a way that I need to be like them. You need to be yourself. You need to fucking live your truth. The quicker you can realize what your truth is and you stay in alignment with that, the more success you're going to have and the more people you're going to attract into your life and into your business. And I know that's kind of like, I think that is probably the most important thing as an entrepreneur, as a podcaster, is just fucking be real. I don't want to say authentic gets thrown out a lot these days. Be authentic, but like you gotta be in your fucking truth all the time. If you're not, you're going to find yourself not feeling aligned with your goal. So yeah, I would definitely say discover what it is you really want to do, who you want to be, and make sure that you stick to that and that it aligns with who the fuck you really are.
It's powerful advice right there, brother. For the people that want to check you out, man, they want to listen to the podcast, they want to, link up with the agency, maybe make their own podcast, check out the course you have dropping in a few a few weeks, the course? Or?
Yeah, when is this going to air, just so that I know?
This is probably, I'm doing 3 episodes a week as well, so it's probably going to air next week.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Well, my websites are under construction right now, so to make it super easy, I would go right to my Instagram, lance.essihos, and again, like I said, it's my new account, but I have all the things. If you want to check out the course, there's for the mentorship course, there's a link in the link tree there. If you want to find the podcast, it's also through there. And if you have any questions about our done for you services, just hit me up on a DM. Happy to set up a call. This is kind of in the process where we're revamping my University of Adversity site and my Mic Up business site. So it's kind of like, just to keep it simple, I'll just guide them right to Instagram.
Boom.
That's the best way.
Easy enough, man.
Yeah, man.
All right, and we'll link that in the show notes as well. Lance, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Tons of value, man. Super inspired, especially for me being a new podcaster. Thank you so much for sharing your value, man. Much, much love. And I look forward to staying connected, bro.
I appreciate it, man. You're a natural at this. Keep it up.
Thank
honestly.
you, brother. It means
Great
a lot.
work.
Thank you, bro. Well, we'll catch up soon, man. Enjoy your day.
Sounds good, brother.